Hey everybody, Mr. Regan here, and today we're going to be going over our malaria drug resistance game. We're going to be looking at how to play, what the rules are, and how we're going to be collecting our data. So in your Amplify lesson, we're going to be completing this survey at the end of this video and making sure that we understand not only the rules of this game, but how to record our data in the next set of tasks. So let's go ahead and get into it. In our game, you will be given a starting population of malaria parasites, a random number. And you'll be applying some drugs to help lower their population. Each time you apply the anti-malaria drugs, the surviving parasites will reproduce and create one offspring. Some of those offspring will be just like their parents, and some of the offspring will have mutations for new traits that will resist the drugs. We will continue to apply these drugs over multiple generations and see the effects on the population over time. So let's go ahead and take a look at our malaria parasites that will be in our population. So we're going to have a group of parasites, and we're going to have some green malaria parasites that are going to have no drug resistance, meaning they can't fight back. We're going to have some blue parasites, which will have low drug resistance, so some of them will be able to fight back. And we're going to have some purple parasites. They're going to have high drug resistance, so they're going to be able to fight back a lot. And in our game, we're going to have a set of rules to help us play out all these different generations. So here's how this is going to work. Here's how we're going to be applying our drugs to our parasite population. So when we get into our game, we're going to have 4 steps that we follow. Step 1 is we're going to be applying our drug to our parasite generation. Okay. Step number 2 is going to be we record our survivors in our next generation. Step number 3 is we're going to be creating one parasite offspring for each parent, so they reproduce. And step 4 is we're going to record our offspring data in the histogram as well. Now, for each one of these steps, there's some rules that go with them. So for step 1, we have 3 rules. We're going to apply our drugs to the different generations. We're going to apply the drug to our green parasites to start. When we do that, 3 out of the 4 are going to die because they have no resistance. So for example, if this is our population, okay, where you see these black X's, that represents our parasite population. Well, if 3 out of 4 are going to die, then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 here. So these first 3 will die, the 4th one will survive. These next 3 will die, and the 4th one will survive. We'll do that with the blue. So 1 out of 4 will die. So here is my 4 blue, and 1 of them will die, meaning the other 3 will survive. Now, I don't have any purple, but if I did, 0 out of the 4 would die, so they all would survive. So step 2 is record the survivors in the next generation. So these survivors, the one with the red boxes, get to survive, and we would add them to our next generation histogram here. So if you notice, all of these red boxes are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 survivors, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from our very first round, our very first generation. Step 3, we're going to create one parasite offspring for each parent survivor. We're going to do that by rolling dice. During reproduction, mutations are random. So when we roll for reproduction, we're going to create one offspring for every parent. So if we have 5 survivors, we would have 5 additional offspring, bringing my total population to 10. So how would we do this? I would start by picking one of my parent offspring. So let's say I pick this green one, and I'm going to roll my dice by clicking on the video. You'll notice that the dice is going to spin very quickly. And my goal is to pause it at any random time, and whatever number I get, so in this case a 6, will tell me whether or not my offspring will have a new mutated trait, or if the offspring will have a parent trait. So I rolled an even number. That means the offspring of this one green parasite would have a mutation. Now let's say I rolled an odd number, like a 1, that means the offspring would have the parent trait. So if I roll an even, I'm going to go to part B. If I roll an odd, I'm going to go to step 4. So let's look at even. Even. I'm then going to roll the dice to see what trait they get. 1 to 2 is green, 3 to 4 is blue, 5 to 6 is purple. So again, we're looking at the offspring of this one green one. It's got a mutated trait, and I rolled a 6. So that means its offspring would have a purple trait, and so on. So how would I record that? Well, if I rolled that even number, like I said before, and I rolled that purple trait, I would put the X in for the new offspring in the mutated trait for that color. So I'd put it in the purple. Since I rolled a 6, which is a purple trait, I put it in purple. If I rolled an odd number, like I did the second time, it would go into the parent trait color. So in that case, green, and so on. Once I've done this, I would repeat all of these steps again for the next generation. So how will this look? Let's take a look at how this would happen. When you get to your slideshow, you're going to see a starting population. And you're going to start by pulling up the directions here and following the steps. Well, step 1, apply your drug. Well, if this is my population, 3 out of 4 would die for the green. So 1, 2, 3 would die. The 4th one would survive. 1 out of 4 of the blue one would die. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this one would die. The rest would survive. And I don't have any purple. I record the survivors of the next one. So all my reds move on to the next population. I'm then going to follow my parasite offspring rules. Those are my roll rules for my dice. So again, I'm going to roll my dice. So for this very first one, I'm going to roll my dice for him. Whatever offspring I get is based on the numbers. So let's say for the first one, I roll a 1. Well, 1 is odd. That means that one's going to have the same trait as my parent. So I'd go here. For the second one, if I roll, let's say I roll a 2, that means it's going to mutate. I would roll again. Let's say I roll a 5. That means it's in the purple trait. So there you go. I put it in the purple trait. For my blue one, let's say I rolled a 3. I would keep that blue one. Let's say for the next blue, I rolled a 5. I would keep that one. Let's say for the next blue survivor, I roll and I get a 4. Well, that means it mutated. I roll again, I get a 6. That means I get a purple trait. So notice, I take my starting, I apply all of those rules, and then I repeat all the 4 steps again. Well, I've completed generation 2. I'm going to start over. So I'm going to go to step 1. 3 out of my 4 for the green will die. Well, I have less than 4, so I'm going to kill 2 out of the 3. The majority need to die. For my blue, 1 out of the 4 will die. Well, I have more than 4. The majority of mine need to survive. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 out of my 5 survive. And 0 out of my 4 for purple survive. So I have 2 purple. I'm going to have all of them survive. So notice, all of the ones that survived are now in my next generation. And I would move on to the next set of steps. I've recorded my next generation. Now I'm going to do the offspring again. Rolling for reproduction, even and odd, and then rolling for mutation if it happens, recording after that. So, folks, that is how the rules work and how we record our population data in our data tables. If you have questions, reach out. Otherwise, good luck.